Hey everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journal channel. Today we're going to be playing with some monotone colours to create a page in our art journal. So with this page I am starting off using a little bit of gesso in my craft journal. You can see I've got some leftover something, I think from a stencil in the background. And I'm just painting on some gesso because I want to pour some gloss sprays onto my page. Craft paper tends to be quite absorbent, so if you don't have something on it like gel medium or some gesso, as you can just see there, the colour is going to change significantly. So while I was spraying blues out, you can see it almost looks green on the untreated craft page. So if you've been using your sprays and you've been wondering, oh, it's not quite working, try putting a different colour or a gesso underneath and seeing if you make a difference. Now my sprays don't often work, they work for the first little while, but I don't often spray my inks anyway, my sprays anyway. I tend to actually just open up the lid and splatter them on, or pour them on like I've just done and mix them up in that way. So it doesn't bother me that the sprays don't particularly work. I sort of get halfway through trying to spray them and then it splobs and then I decide to do something else anyway. I know it is a source of frustration for some people and I get that, but for me it's just, if it works it works, if it doesn't I'll just take off the lid and get my paintbrush in it or pour it. One of the things I do love with the gloss sprays is actually using paintbrush with it, because you've got almost these watercolors that you can use, except when they dry they're permanent, which I find awesome because I'm not great with water reactive stuff. So once I finished spraying and muddling and using my fingers, I have gone in and stamped my image. So this is one of the new Dina Wakley stamps. She released I think in September. And I've stamped directly over the gloss spray. I don't necessarily usually stamp in my art journals, but the one that I will tend to do it in is a craft journal, particularly this one because it's quite thick and really smooth paper and it takes the stamping really well. I also find stamping over gloss sprays works quite well. I'm stamping over it using archival ink, which is a permanent ink, because it is again quite a smooth texture. Usually, I have put my fingers through this one, but it was smooth enough that I was able to stamp through it pretty easily. I have, however, gone over with my paint pen just to add a little bit of extra detail. Because I drew in the shoulders and the sort of dress of my figure, I just kept going, putting in a bit more hair or a bit more depth in the hair. While I was doing the background, I decided that I was going to stick with some monochromatic colours, so staying within the same colour palette apart from obviously the gold, which picked up the craft from behind. So I have chosen to use instead of using sort of a white to put some shading with my line work, I chose a turquoise colour. I'm also choosing night to add my shadow. So again, quite often I would use my Stabilo oil pencil to do this, but I actually chose in this case to use some paint, highly watered down, to create this sort of shadow effect, to push my figure out from the background somewhat. And I actually really liked how the effect turned out. So once I'd done that, I decided to get carried away and put a little bit of extra shading in with my paintbrush and then drying it off. So if you didn't have the acrylic paint to do that, obviously you could use a Stabilo oil pencil, does the same sort of thing. If you've got Inktense pencils or an Inktense block, you could do the same thing with that as well. And when it dries, it will dry clear. And I wanted to add a little bit more detail, so I'm going in with this heart. For those of you who follow my channel for a while know that when I tend to do abstracty figures like this, I have got washi heart, heart washi, sorry, that looks very much like that one. So the fact I've got a stamp of it now, I can kind of make my own little hearts on the page. I also decided I wanted to put a little bit more pattern into her dress, so I've got this leaf stamp that I'm going over, but again, to sort of tie it all together, I'm going over with really scribbly lines and my turquoise fine pen. So while sort of from afar it doesn't really make much of a difference, it just adds that little bit of extra detail. One of the final things I'm doing in the background is to add a little bit of mark making, and to do that I'm just using my Posca paint pen. This is my wide, I think it's a 7M paint pen, to create that little bit of a dot, starry, night ground background to my figure. I did dry it off because I have got a terrible tendency when I have got dots like that I'll put my hand straight in it and smudge it. So I do often get my heat gun out and do a little bit of drying. Now going in with my white paint pen to add some highlights as well. So I suppose on other pages where it wasn't necessarily as dark, I would use a black pen to do what I just did, but in this page, because I want the contrast, I am using the white. Then I found a quote that sort of fitted really nicely in the top hand part of my page that I related to my image. So I'm going in with my white paint pen, drying it off, and then I'll go back with a black just to help push those letters out from the background a little bit. And you can sort of see slightly, still very hard to read from a distance, but you can see by putting that black on there how that's pushing it out from the background, and it makes a real difference to the letters and the text that you have on your page. So if you don't add highlights or drop shadows on your letters, have a go. It's pretty easy to do as long as you're consistent. It doesn't matter what side you put the drop shadow on. I tend to do it on the bottom left hand side of all my letters. It wouldn't matter if I did it on the top right hand side, as long as I did it exactly the same for all the letters in the piece that I'm writing on. So you choose whatever's easiest for you, but have a go, but see how much of a difference it makes. So this is the close-up. You can see that line work with the turquoise and the white, how it helps pop the figure out a little bit. You can see that swirly pattern from the gloss sprays in the background, and the beautiful colour contrast with that quote that really echoes what's going on the page. So have a go with playing around with a monochromatic look in your journal. It's really great to sort of create those moody pieces occasionally, and to experiment with just one colour palette means you're not having to think about what colours go with what. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, bye for now.